Hey, wrestling card collectors, welcome to another special edition, which seems to be a habit as of late this year of WTCtv. I mean, we're in March, and there just seems to be an endless amount of surprises happening in this hobby.
Every day.
Today, we learn of the new deal between WWE and Fanatics. You know, this company that is now projected like a $27 billion company now.
It's a big one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's encompassing all of WWE's merchandising, which includes trading cards, which is our specialty, and NFTs as well under their Candy? Is it Candy?
I'm
Planet?
sure. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have something. Yeah.
It's incredible. So it's just, what are your initial thoughts on this right away, Adam?
Not really surprised. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, like, I would love to say that coming into this, that there wasn't a domination plan or world domination plan for Fanatics to take over everything, but there clearly is. And I think that that's the right play. Like, if I'm them, like, I am absolutely looking to consolidate as much of this hobby as I possibly can, just for the sole purpose that it is so fragmented and so siloed. Having a consolidated partner from a business standpoint, not from a collector standpoint, but from a business standpoint, having a consolidated partner that handles all stages of things is insanely profitable, especially right now.
How has this not become like a monopoly in our industry, though?
Because I think it's pretty hard to really say like they are the only trading card providers, because that's not true. I mean, like, it's easy to see that there are other trading card providers that have flourished, and like to build an antitrust case would be awfully difficult given the circumstances of the marketplace right now.
Do you think they're only going after these licenses that are sports related, or do we see them going after non-sport stuff as well, like Rittenhouse properties and things like that nature?
Well, I think with the Rittenhouse and Cryptozoic and all the other sort of non-sport providers, like, I think those deals are probably pretty attainable, right? So like, if you think about the way that those companies build relationships with their licensors, they're probably not exclusive. If they are exclusive, they probably weren't at the level of money that can be thrown at them.
Sure.
So if you look like a license, let's use like The Simpsons as an example. Like, if you really wanted to go after The Simpsons, I'm sure you could. Like, it can't be that much more like above your budget than what you were expecting, right? Yeah. Like, if you're Fanatics, you have a budget, and you probably are like, I'm willing to spend this many millions of dollars for this license, or not even millions. You're and a non-sport license, you're probably even below that. So like, I know my budget is X. Going into a license like that, you're probably not exceeding your budget pretty heavily. Like, this is like, when you go after a sports license, then it's completely different because there's huge competition, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just speculating. None of that was anything more than just pulled directly out of my butt. But I think the main thing here is, like, if you think about it from a business perspective, like the way that non-sport exists right now, outside of Marvel and like what Upper Deck has with Marvel and a few other select things like Star Wars, like, a non-sport license is relatively difficult to be profitable unless you have established yourself as a brand name within that industry. So for somebody like Fanatics, which is a sports related company, to go after that isn't out of the question. I just think it's probably phase 8 of their plan of 100, right? So
it'd probably be something that along the lines of, like, it's just an added bonus when you turn around and purchase something like Topz, which already has a lot of these other non-sport licenses as well.
Right, and I was saying that to somebody on Twitter today, is like, the thing with Topz is
talking about a company that goes from real high, gets cut down, gets bought back up, and now it's back out on top again.
Right, and that's what I was saying to somebody on Twitter. It's like, okay, let's say that you're Topz, and like, you go into this year with baseball and WWE and all of these different licenses, the UFC, like, you go into like last year with all of that. Coming out of last year, you've got none of that. So like, all of it is gone. And then, because there's this new behemoth that comes in and just basically takes everything. And they take everything because they have equity partnership from those licenses, which means not only are those licenses gone, they're gone forever. So it's a really key sort of understanding to have, is that because of the equity that the league has in Fanatics' success at a high level, those licenses are long-term and likely forever, unless there's a black swan event that changes everything, right? And that's happened here. So that's not impossible, but it's definitely unlikely. So then you're like, okay, Topps is one of those companies that we basically gutted. So what is the most valuable way to get out of Topps or Upper Deck or Panini what we need to be successful in this hobby? And that is IP, brand names, distribution, designers, like all of the different relationships that exist in the hobby are exceptionally valuable, to a point where Fanatics has zero, like none of that. Now they have some of the distribution and they have some of the retail and stuff like that, but when it comes to actual relationships, it's likely very small. So by bringing in people from Topps who have decades worth of experience, plus a design team that can support the level of products you need to create, like, it's unavailable. Like, you have to do that. Now, I thought it wouldn't happen that way. I really did. Like, I thought Fanatics would just buy everything, because the terminology with M&A is always build versus buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Fanatics was definitely just going to try and build everything because they had an unlimited budget. They ended up buying Topps, which I think was a tremendous play. Now that we see it, but I think it undermines their ability to truly get a consolidation in play, because Topps comes with existing relationships that are probably unable to be involved in the upheaval that we're seeing across the hobby. So I mean, like, there's a lot of different things that are going on around Topps that I think will continue to make sure that the existing hobby stalwarts continue to have a foothold, which I was looking forward to seeing much more upheaval than that, just because those institutions are generally negative for the collector experience.
I mean, can you imagine being an employee over at Topps right now, not knowing what your future holds in December of last year?
Yeah.
And now we are.
I've talked to a few of them on Twitter, and I've talked to a few of them otherwise, and like, obviously they're ecstatic, and they should be, right? That they've definitely had every reason to be upset and depressed, and now they have every reason to think that they're king of the world, because they are. And I think this isn't the last time that we're going to see. If this is the direction, right? If this is the direction that they're bringing to the table with acquiring brands and going for the jugular and announcing it, right? Like, somebody at Panini, like one of my friends said, like, somebody at Panini must have pissed the wrong person off at Fanatics, because they are definitely burying them, like, right ahead of their biggest moment with this brand. And I was saying to my friend again, like, bottom line, like, this is unheard of. It's unheard of that you have a new license, that you also know when that license is going to end.
Yeah.
So it's like, have you
been seeing the analogies that Brian Gray from Leaf has been putting up on Twitter?
No, I've been having some other things go on today, so I haven't been paying attention as much as I have.
It's been very entertaining to watch. Like, it's like, I think he compared it to being like already announcing your next wife while you haven't even hit your honeymoon yet from your current wife.
Right, exactly. I said it's like, my analogy was like, imagine you're in a relationship and you're like, your girlfriend like decides, oh, I'm gonna go be with that guy. You're like, you go be with that guy, and then you come back when you want to see what a real man looks like, because that's basically what this is. It's because it's crazy. Like, this is unprecedented. Like, this has never happened ever, where you go into a new license knowing that license has a specific end date that's near in the future, right?
It's already dead on arrival before even arriving.
Yeah, and I think that's really the crazy thing here is, like, how do you expect this to be successful if the brand can't be invested in, because you know it's a deadline of revenue in 2 to 3 years?
You mentioned this in your article you wrote up this morning. It's like that. I read it, which was another well-written piece. And how do you, for those who haven't read it, how does this affect Panini going forward right now then?
Man, that's a loaded question. I think it's a number of different ways. From a collector standpoint, I don't think it impacts Prism all that much. I think Prism is a juggernaut, and I think it's going to be impossible to stop. I just do. Like, there's nothing that people are going to be able to do or say that will not make that product one of the most valuable WWE products ever produced. However, once you get into products that aren't legacy, right? So you look at Prism, Select, National Treasures, Flawless, like those contenders, like those are the real legacy Panini products, right? Those are the ones they base their calendar on for football and baseball and basketball. Let's say, for instance, that you have Prism, which is like the beginning of the calendar, and then you're expanding your license then with Prism and Select, and then, oh, by the way, it's Prism, Select, and Chronicles. Like it's like a stair step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if one of those stairs is shorter, like what does that mean for, like, you're literally going to trip, and like does it impact your ability to be successful in the third and fourth products? And I think that is going to be a true bellwether. We are going to see very quickly with first off the line in a couple of days, whether or not it's going to sell out at 1,200, 1,500, whatever, or if it's going to hit the floor. I don't think it will hit the floor. I don't think it's going to come even close. But if it does, like everybody needs to like run screaming and yelling to the exits. Like that should not happen. And I think if it does,
for those who don't know, what is hitting the floor?
So it's a Dutch auction. So it starts at $2,000, and every so often the price comes down until it sells out. And so usually first off the line never hits the floor. It'll come, and the floor is like $700 something a box. So like at 900, comparatively to other sports, like it should be well sold out by 900. Now let's say that for whatever reason, the news today scares too many people off. Like if it hits that $750, $700 mark, and like, wow, like that would shock the hell out of me, and it would be a very bad sign for things long term. Like you like that means that people are buying first off the line lower than they would have bought the hobby boxes. They're upside down on first out the line, which rarely ever happens anymore. It happened originally, but now it does not.
That's crazy.
So yeah. So like if you think about Prism as a whole, like you want to make sure that you start off, because it's still like 2 to 3 years, right? So we expect that Panini is going to hold this license enough time that it will have really good data on it. Unless something happens and Fanatics buys Panini, right? That's now part of our overall understanding, right?
One of my questions to ask, but you're already hitting it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that that's well within expectations. If we expect that Panini no longer has any valuable IP because UFC license is probably 2 to 3 years off, they just picked one off. What's to stop them from picking off another one? Like they could easily go for the jugular, and that's it. Like Panini has no valuable IP other than their brands. Then it's just a matter of who they sell to. Do they sell to this company, or do they sell to any potential competitors that would come on to challenge the juggernaut? I think the whole thing with Prism is that it has enough of a hobby following to sustain itself. Now let's look at like a new product, like one that's specifically designed for the WWE brand with no loyalty and no brand recognition. Like, oh, hold on to your butts. Like that could be a really bad situation. Now, if they come in and they deliver content that has never been seen before in WWE, maybe that changes the outlook for that product. Or maybe it gets to a point where it's so discounted that people start buying it up because they see the value in the room it has, given the trajectory that Topps had coming into this license. But yeah, like if you release a legacy product first, and then secondly, you release a brand with no loyalty in a market that you just announced your death, like that's a really bad recipe. So I'm hoping that they go like Prism, Select, Immaculate, and then so they establish a big market curve, and then they start taking some risks. They may not take risks anymore. They may not be able to. So it all depends on a lot of different things. I don't see, and like I don't see this being a good thing overall. It just can't be. You're announcing your death before you're even born. Like it sucks.
It does. So we know we kind of don't know what's going to happen with Prism. I mean, with Panini products like that. I mean, Prism is still Prism, like you said. It has its loyalty already, so I don't think it's going to be overly affected. I kind of agree with you there. I guess we'll kind of know in a couple of days and how this.
Yeah, I think by June-ish, we should have probably a pretty good idea of the way the market's responding.
Now,
I would also keep an eye out on the Topps Chrome and the big sales and how they're going.
Ask you right now. I was going to say, now we know, like, oh, well, Topps is no longer going to be a part of this, WWE license anymore. So people have been gobbling up all this Topps Chrome, and we're seeing new records and new numbers being hit. Like, how does this going to affect now that going forward?
So this is a really interesting discussion. This is probably the one that has the most facets of any of them. what drove the boom? Like, that's the question that everybody needs to be asking yourself, is what drove Topps Chrome to be more valuable? What drove Topps Finest to be more valuable? What drove all of these things to be more valuable? Is it that the trading card boom is finally reaching WWE? Or is
Part of
it,
it. I think it's part.
or is it Topps finally getting to a point where they can where their products across all sports, or just this, like UFC sales are skyrocketing, so maybe there's some spillover there? Or is it that people saw Panini coming like I did and invested a ton of money because they saw all of these different things happening, right? If there's an inordinate amount of people in group 3, which is, I'm a Prism collector ahead of the curve, and they now see that Prism's like potentially 1 and done or 2 and done, whatever, like, then they leave. We have to keep an eye on those sales to see, like, if again, if you saw the Topps Chrome stuff and the shiny stuff like go like this, if it plateaus and starts coming down the other end because these Panini investors don't see the long-term sort of thing, then again, run for the exit. It's like you can't, you're hitting a peak, right? So like, if this is all a speculative bubble, so if there's no more speculation around the value of a long-term asset, then all of a sudden it starts impacting other aspects of that asset. And so you have to really sort of look at it from a perspective of like, where's the money going? Like, you have to follow the money. So if the money up until this point was all going into these cards because they thought that Panini was going to drive a huge new audience and all the spillover was going to happen and those cards' value was going to go up, like, now that Panini's out and Topps is coming back in, and we've seen that Topps has never been as successful at Panini in driving the investor mindset, then, except for an F1, right? Except for an F1 cards, like, that's the only time where they've seemingly been more successful. That's really a challenge. There's just not enough people that like Topps to continue operating at this versus this. And so there's just going to be we have to keep an eye on those sales. Now, there's another school of thought where it's like, maybe because it's a limited run, we know it's going to be limited, we want to invest more because there's going to be less of it, right? When has a collector ever saw something as a limited run and not wanted to pour every last penny they have into something, right? So the years are limited, which means the overall population of Prism cards will be limited, potentially a year, 2 years, whatever it might be. Like, it's a huge question mark. Like, all of this is a question mark because this has never happened before. So there's no historical data to produce in the aspect of a new license leading to the death of a license and back to an old license. Like, never happened.
It's a crazy time. It's like, this is a vastly different conversation than what we had last time, where we were so proud and so happy, like, I'm ahead of the curve. I'm here. I'm already, exactly. I'm ready. Like, I'm buying up stuff I would never buy before because I know that I'm going to be able to make money off this stuff, and even the short or long term. And now it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know now if my investments are going to be worth it to the level that I thought they were going to be worth.
I don't think anything snaps back. Like, I mean, we just have to be very frank with people. Like, when they say, "Oh, well, no, nothing's going to be worth anything anymore," no. Like, there's a floor. Yep. And the floor is concrete. Like, yes. there's no like going beneath that floor, in my opinion. Because the floor was established before the Panini announcement. So we know that that's a constant. And that's probably on the heels of the vintage boom with WWE, the UFC sales, and trading cards in general. So if trading cards now take a dip, that's the other question, is like, if Fanatics consolidation plan causes a dip in the hobby like it has potential impact for in 2026, I mean, that's another factor here. Like, I've told you this before, like, my investment is minute in some cases. My collection, I'm not in it for the money. I'm here to have fun. So that piece of it doesn't matter to me. It's the just speculating and having fun, sort of playing the market here, right? Yeah. So as we go through this, and as people have conversations, as I mentioned in the last one, there has to be an exit strategy. Like, you have to have a even more clear exit strategy now. What are you willing to lose before you sell? And if you look at, like, for GameStop, which is another sort of speculative sort of situation that I think really sort of rings true for a lot of people. There was no exit strategy for a lot of these people. So they're still in, even though it's well above where they probably bought it, they've probably fallen off considerable amounts of money, millions in some cases. So you're looking at same thing here. It's like, what is your exit strategy? Because you have to have a clear idea.
Yes, all of those things I would have to agree with. It's all plays into my years of or decades of saying this is like a stock market, and now it's all coming to like realization for people, a lot of people, that when to buy and when to sell kind of crap. It's crazy.
I think stock markets are more predictable, honestly, than some of these things.
True, because this is a new commodity getting into the same type of aura as a stock market community. So it's new to a lot of people. So obviously there's a track record in the actual market itself, stock market itself, that, like you said, we can predict those kind of things a little bit better. But now we're in new territory here with trading cards. It's kind of like shaking things up, and in a very weird way for longtime collectors.
Very weird way. Yeah, it's a very weird thing. I think overall the stock market comparison is there. I don't think it's as crazy, right? I think it's like there's stocks have more tools, there's more people, there's more voices, but there's also a lot more history. So when you're talking about like with some of these new IPOs, maybe there's some comparison there that could be made, but overall, I think there's a lot of less comparison to the stock market than there would be to something like a collectible car market, where you look at the way that that's responded to the pandemic versus what was happening prior to the pandemic and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of good knowledge there, but I catch those auto auctions and talk about those things on ESPN 8, the Ocho or whatever. So I mean, so I think when you look at that stuff like that, those types of collectible markets are probably a better representation of like what the upheaval truly represents in terms of a speculative bubble. But overall, like this piece of it, this specific piece of it is brand new.
Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot left for us to really talk about this topic until the next couple of weeks. We see how things kind of plan out. Like you said, maybe even June, find out what the market's going to be like. But one of the quick things I want to ask you about and talk about is the NFT side of things of this.
Mm-hmm.
And how does this play out for people like myself? You were the one who got me into it. Is the Topz Slam stuff. And there's going to be a digital aspect of this now.
Well, it says that there was. So like the announcement had digital listed in it.
It did.
However, I think it's like, I mean, like I'd like to prop grandma up at the table after she's died and say, she's back, let's have Thanksgiving, but it doesn't work like that usually. There's a lot of dependencies there that I think Fanatics is probably realizing pretty early on, that those digital card apps only are able to generate a finite source of income on a regular basis. So does that mean that they're more or less of a risky investment than an NFT plan? And I think that there is much more to be said around NFTs than there are to be around digital cards. So I don't think that Slam is going to be part of the plan, at least short term. It may come back if they go that direction with a new vision, but I think once we really get down the nuts and bolts of Fanatics' relationship with Topz, I think the days of the digital card are likely going to yield to NFTs, because that's really a much better platform.
Or maybe somehow merging those two things that we talked about in the past, where people who are used to using an app such like Topz Slam, and now being able to turn it into some kind of a NFT format as well down the road is very possible.
I think that's an interest. Like, it doesn't really work that way though. Like, that's not the way it works.
Now we can't think about it and wrap our heads around it right now, but better minds out there in that market can probably figure out a way to make those things merge and make it easier to use.
I think the universes of those apps are so large that it's probably pretty difficult to do a transfer of some sort. Maybe there's some sort of credit arrangement or whatever, but overall, like, I think expecting Topz just to add NFTs to their digital platform that exists today is unlikely. I think Panini's struggling with it too. Like, the value of their NFTs aren't taking off the way that they thought they would. So, I mean, again, I don't know what the future of NFTs even looks like at this point. I think that there are some, elite level NFTs that still continue to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of value. But those are few and far between now, rather than every day.
As it was expected to be. I mean, as like people like the Gary V say, 99% of them are going to go to the wayside, and only 1% are going to exist. But how do you think this affects, speaking of values, how do you think this is going to affect previous NFTs that WWE's put out, the Cena, the Undertaker ones like that. Do you think it's going to affect those at all? Those are on two different platforms as well.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing, is like there's not really an apples to apples comparison there.
Gotcha.
So I don't think that there's a lot to compare. I think the value, like there are certain NFTs that are collectible, right? Like that's where I think the NFT market really sort of built a following, is that Top Shot and Bored Ape Yacht Club and, you know, Astro Kitties and Cyberpunks and whatever, CryptoPunks or whatever, like all of those things are collectible because there's a lot of them. And because a lot of them in variety, not a lot of them in run. And I think so, like if you look at like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is one of the most valuable NFT platforms that exists right now, there's a hierarchy of value created by the collectability of the apes. So you look at what human nature is I want to achieve an elite level collection of these. Like that doesn't exist with the Undertaker one. That doesn't exist with the Cena one. I believe the Undertaker one was tied to experiences too.
Yeah.
It's like you got to do things as a result of that. But having a one-of-one collectible is still probably pretty valuable. But for everybody that was in on the 500 and 1,000, like there's not a multitude of different Undertakers dressed in different outfits that you're supposed to be able to collect. True. I think that's the aspect in which to judge a lot of these future NFT projects is there a collectible aspect to the variety that exists within the NFT? And if the answer is no, it's probably not going to catch on the way it used to.
So much crazy stuff, man. Every time there seems to be like this breaking news kind of stuff like that, you're the first person I don't jump onto, because I know there's a lot of opinions going on here and a lot of stuff to talk about here. But you know, it just got announced this morning, and here we are talking about it. And there's going to be weeks and months to come where we're going to see how this all plays out. Like,
yeah, and then that's the thing with the WWE market too, is that this news doesn't dissipate quickly. It barely makes it through the top layer of the community in the first week. And the Panini announcement was made 6 months ago, and I announced it on Twitter ahead of that, before that, because of information from the industry. Like there are people who still don't know that Panini is taking over.
I saw someone's tweet this morning talk about that. Goes, well, looks like the Topz license is going to be over, and people are like, dude, they've already lost it last year. They lost it last year.
It's gone. It's gone. Like it's already expired. It's expired 12/31. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like I think the impact of this on the wrestling community is probably far from over. And I think a lot of them are probably pretty excited if they're pretty upset that Panini's taking over. But overall, again, they just need to understand that this isn't going to be a snapback moment. It's like, okay, maybe the potential of that peak is lower rather than the peak not being there. Yeah.
I agree. We're going to have some crazy times here, man. I'm sure throughout the day, we're going to hear more opinions from people and check out social media and see, who's got what to say. But I mean, we have, people getting slapped on live TV last night, and then we have,
right.
announcements
going
today.
Book it, WWE. Book it.
So I probably made a post about, the Rock that we all wanted and the Rock that we got, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
So I appreciate your time, sir. I know you got a busy week coming up here with WrestleMania stuff coming up, and I hope you have fun, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But well, everybody knows how to get a hold of us. How can I get a hold of you real quick? Let everybody know real quick.
I am at SC Uncensored on Twitter and at WWE Gelman, GELLMAN on Instagram. You can see the exploits of my Becky Lynch collection there.
Yes, and it's quite the collection, man. For us, it's WrestlingTradingCards.com. You can go there and find everything you need there. So I appreciate your time, sir.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, we're out.